Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the show that takes a big stack of information, digs through it, and pulls out the most important nuggets of knowledge or insight for you, our listener.
That's right.
Today we're diving into a really fascinating conversation. It's all about fitness routines. But interestingly, it's not just about what people do to stay active. It's also very much about how they talk about it.
Exactly. The language side of things.
We've been looking at some great material from everyday English talk, fitness routines, and vocabulary.
Yeah, it's a great source.
And it gives us this kind of unique window into real-world fitness habits and the practical language people use, every day.
Right.
So let's unpack this. Our mission today, give you a shortcut to understanding common fitness practices, why different workout elements matter so much.
And the vocabulary.
And the vocabulary. Perhaps the most practical part, the words you can use right away to talk about your own routine.
You should walk away feeling pretty well-informed, I think.
Definitely. With some surprising facts, maybe, and definitely concrete examples you can use.
And what's really fascinating about this source material is how it just seamlessly blends the practical fitness advice with these direct linguistic examples.
Yeah.
It shows us not just, what people do for their health, but also the how they actually articulate that journey. So we're going to connect the dots today between consistency, the different types of workouts, what really motivates people.
The motivation piece is big.
Huge. And the specific words and phrases that bring all these concepts to life.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. We drop right into this pretty casual chat. It's between two friends, Emily and Leo.
At a cafe.
Right,
Yeah.
after a morning workout. And it immediately sets the scene for how this everyday talk about fitness can just sort of unfold naturally.
Yeah.
So Emily greets Leo. She notices he looks, quote, fresh.
Nice compliment after a workout.
Right. And Leo mentions he just went for a jog, which he admits is a bit unusual for him, in the morning.
Yeah. Okay, so he's not usually a morning person for exercise.
Apparently not. Emily, though, she's the opposite. She says she always exercises in the morning. Her reason. It gives her energy.
Makes sense. Get it done.
But Leo, maybe a bit more relatable for some of us listening, admits his consistency isn't quite there.
Okay.
He says, I sometimes go to the gym, but I often skip it if I feel tired.
The feeling tired excuse. We've all been there.
Haven't we just? But Emily's advice is simple, very direct. Consistency is the key.
Boom. Simple as that. And what really stands out in that little exchange is how much information comes across with just a few key words.
Right.
If you connect this to the bigger picture, you hear these powerful action verbs like jog, run, swim, lift, do yoga.
The building blocks.
Exactly. They're the fundamental building blocks for describing pretty much any physical activity. But, and this is crucial, they're paired with frequency adverbs. Words like always, usually, often, sometimes, rarely, and of course never.
And those aren't just details, are they?
Not at all. They paint a really vivid picture of how often something happens, which is vital for understanding someone's actual routine, versus what they might wish they did.
That is such a great point. It's not just what you do, but how reliably, how often. Like Emily saying, I always exercise in the morning.
Says a lot.
Really to speak volumes about her dedication.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving beyond those, daily chats, our deep dive really shows how people structure their full weekly routines.
Right, the bigger plan.
And what I found genuinely surprising as we looked through this material was just how different people's schedules can be.
Yeah, there's no one-size-fits-all.
Not at all. And what that tells us about finding your own rhythm. Emily, for instance, she has a very structured week. Runs twice, lifts weights twice.
Okay, specific activities.
And specifically rests on Fridays. She emphasizes, quote, rest days are just as important as workout days.
Crucial point.
And she says she never trains 7 days a week.
Smart. Avoiding overtraining.
Then there's Leo. Predictably, he struggles a bit more with that consistency. He actually admits, I usually rest more than I exercise, though.
Honest, at least.
Very honest. He says he sometimes goes to the gym twice a week, but usually just once. And he rarely does cardio.
Okay, so mostly weights, not much cardio, and maybe not super consistent.
Exactly. But Emily encourages him, right? She pushes him to add some cardio.
Yeah.
Points out, it's good for your heart. I run, swim, and cycle to keep my heart strong.
Good advice.
Which gets Leo thinking, maybe cycling could be a good beginner-friendly option for him.
Yeah, that's a classic scenario, isn't it? You've got Emily's discipline versus Leo's, let's say, more aspirational approach.
Right.
It makes me wonder, what does the material really define as a solid routine? Is it just about, hitting the gym, or is there more to it?
Good question.
And the material really highlights it's not just the activities themselves, it's that crucial balance. Consistency, yes, but also, importantly, incorporating rest.
Oh, wow.
Effectively.
Yeah, effectively, yeah.
Yeah.
Not just collapsing on the couch.
Exactly. The insight on rest here is that it's not passive recovery. It's an active part of building strength.
Ah.
If you push constantly, you can actually degrade performance, risk injury. So rest days become like non-negotiable for long-term progress, not just avoiding burnout.
That makes sense. It's strategic rest.
Precisely. And you hear those frequency adverbs popping up again, defining their routines. Emily always works out mornings, usually lifts twice a week, never skips Friday rest.
Very clear pattern.
Whereas Leo, he often runs in the park, maybe, but sometimes does yoga and rarely does cardio. It's the rhythm these words create that truly paints the picture of their commitment.
Exactly. Paints that vivid picture. Okay, so beyond just consistency, what kinds of workouts are we actually talking about here?
Right, the variety.
Our dive into the material shows a really diverse set of options. And alongside that, some truly critical advice on doing them right.
Safety first.
Absolutely. Emily, for example, she does yoga every weekend. Why? For stretching, deep breathing, muscle relaxation.
Mindfulness aspect too, probably.
Ugh. Yeah. And hilariously, Leo apparently had a rather memorable downward dog experience when he tried it.
Oh, dear. We've all had those awkward first yoga moments, I think.
Definitely. And Emily clarifies the difference, which is helpful. Pilates focuses on core strength and uses small movements, while yoga includes more stretching and breathing techniques.
Good distinction.
As for weightlifting, Leo says he mostly lifts weights at the gym, specifically mentioning bench presses and deadlifts.
Okay, classic strength moves.
But here's where the critical safety advice comes in, and it's a big one. Leo admits he rarely stretches before lifting.
Oh, no. Big mistake.
Emily's reaction is exactly that. Oh no, you should always stretch before and after your workout. It helps prevent injuries.
Firm advice.
Sounds like stretching is absolutely non-negotiable based on this source.
Yeah.
But, I've heard some newer fitness thinking suggest dynamic warm-ups might be more critical before a workout than static stretching. Does the source get into that nuance, or is it more of a classic always stretch message?
That's a really good question, and it does speak to how fitness advice evolves, right?
Yeah.
In this particular material, the emphasis is firmly on the necessity of stretching, both before and after. It's framed as just a foundational part of preventing injuries.
Okay, so foundational.
Yeah, highlighted as critical, non-negotiable for, like long-term well-being in any physical activity. It reinforces the idea that whether you're doing high-intensity cardio or mindful stuff like yoga and Pilates or strength training.
Safety has to be paramount.
Exactly. Safety first.
Yeah.
And listening to Emily and Leo, you pick up on those specific action words, again, describing these very actions. You stretch, you lift weights, you jog around the park. Emily talks about breathing deeply in yoga or how you might need to flex your knees during squats.
Right.
And for cardio, you can cycle or even push yourself to finish a tough routine. These verbs are just so fundamental to describing exactly what you're doing.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
And knowing how to describe them makes it easier to actually talk about your routine with someone.
Absolutely.
So, okay, beyond the actual activities, does it matter when you work out? And what about food? Fueling up.
Ah, the practicalities.
Right. Our sources show there's really no single right answer here. It's just about what works best for you.
Personal preference.
Totally. Emily always works out in the morning. Why? Because she tried evenings and just felt tired.
Fair enough.
Leo, complete opposite. He says, I feel more awake in the evening. I usually work out after 6 p.m.
Night owl workout person.
So the key takeaway seems pretty clear. The best time to work out is the time that fits your life. Simple as that.
Makes sense. Sustainability.
And on the food front, Leo sometimes eats too close to his workout. Feels heavy. We've probably all done that.
Oh, yeah. Not pleasant.
Emily, she usually eats a light breakfast like oatmeal or fruit before my morning run. Smart.
Good fuel.
And after working out, she eats a big meal, often grilled chicken, brown rice, and vegetables. Or sometimes a smoothie with bananas, spinach, and protein powder.
Proper recovery food.
I always just thought about eating before or eating after, but the source really highlighted the type of food and just how personal that timing is. That was a real takeaway for me.
It's a crucial insight, isn't it? And it raises an important question. Beyond the exercises, how do these practical things like timing and nutrition impact our ability to actually maintain a routine?
Right. The maintenance part.
The insight here is that, yeah, personal preference dictates the timing. And smart fueling isn't just about performance in the moment. It's about finding what sustains your efforts.
Sustains.
Over the long haul. Not just what's theoretically ideal on paper. Emily prepares her light breakfast, eats that bigger meal after, makes sure she drinks plenty of water.
Hydration, yeah.
Leo, on the other hand, needs to be mindful of when he eats before his workouts. So it comes down to how you prepare your meals, how you eat them, maybe even what you snack on.
That's a powerful distinction, sustaining your efforts, not just starting them. Okay, so we all know consistency is key. We've heard that loud and clear. But how do you actually stay consistent? When life inevitably gets in the way.
The million-dollar question.
It really is. Our source offers some pretty smart strategies for staying motivated. Emily, for example, she's very methodical about it.
Okay.
She sets goals and tracks my progress, uses a fitness app, apparently, that tells her calories burned, distance run, that kind of thing.
Data-driven.
Yeah. Leo started with a smartwatch for tracking, but admits he don't always check it.
The data is only useful if you look at it.
True. Emily suggests setting small weekly goals, like just, I will go to the gym twice this week.
Achievable steps.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And crucially, she says, when you reach your goal, reward yourself. I love that bit.
Positive reinforcement, always good.
And Leo brings up maybe joining a group class, too. Maybe boxing or dance fitness.
The social element.
Yeah. Emily confirms that group classes are fun and social. You feel like part of a team. She sometimes joins Zumba or spin classes. Finds Zumba so fun you forget you're exercising.
That's the dream, right? Exercise that doesn't feel like exercise.
How powerful is that social piece, really?
Oh, it's incredibly powerful. And what's fascinating here is the psychological side of fitness.
Right.
It's not just about the physical effort. It's about creating these systems that encourage you to stick with it. Adherence.
Systems of
From tangible tracking, like how Emily uses her app to track progress or set those goals, to the social motivation you get from group classes.
Yeah.
These are really powerful tools. They turn intentions into actual sustained habits. When you join a class, you automatically get that layer of accountability, right?
Yeah, you don't want to let the team down.
Exactly. And the idea of small, achievable goals and then making sure you reward yourself for hitting them, that helps build that positive reinforcement loop.
Makes sense.
Which raises an important question for you listening right now. How can you maybe incorporate some of these motivation techniques into your own life? What small thing could you maybe challenge yourself with this week?
That's a great question to reflect on. So, okay, what does all this mean for you? How do you put it together?
Yeah, the practical application.
Our deep dive actually wraps up by providing a template, a way to create a simple weekly workout plan, pulling together all these elements we've talked about. It's a great way to visualize how all these pieces can actually fit together.
Yeah, this is where the knowledge becomes really actionable, I think. By seeing a structured example, you can picture how it all works, different activities, how often you do them, those crucial rest days, how they fit into a whole week. It encourages you to think critically about your own schedule, your own preferences, and lets you tailor it.
So what does the example look like?
Okay, so the example plan they give looks something like this. Monday, run 3 kilometers.
Yeah.
And the frequency adverb, usually.
Usually run Monday.
Tuesday, lift weights, upper body, frequency, always.
Always lift Tuesday. Got it.
Wednesday, yoga for 30 minutes, frequency, sometimes.
Bit more flexible.
Exactly. Thursday, rest, frequency, never skip.
Non-negotiable rest day. Good.
Friday, cycle around the neighborhood, frequency, often.
Okay, often
Yeah.
cycle Friday.
Saturday, group class, maybe Zumba or Pilates. Frequency, sometimes.
Weekend fun.
And Sunday, swim at the pool. Frequency, rarely.
So maybe an occasional Sunday swim.
Yeah.
Wow, that really lays it out clearly with the frequency words.
Doesn't it? It's a great template.
It really is. Fantastic for getting started. And then just to kind of consolidate everything we've learned and give you a chance to practice recalling some key details.
Test your knowledge.
Exactly. The source finishes up with a quick Q&A section. Think of it like a mini quiz on your newfound fitness talk expertise.
Yeah, it just reinforces understanding by prompting you to recall the info and the vocabulary directly, highlights the practical application.
Okay.
So, for example, if someone asks you, how often do you lift weights?
Okay. Using the template, you could confidently say, I usually lift weights twice a week, or maybe just once if you're adapting it.
Perfect,
Yeah.
see? Or, if asked, what kind of cardio do you do?
Following Leo's journey, maybe. I sometimes jog and I'm planning to start cycling. It makes you sound like you know what you're talking about.
It absolutely does. And if someone poses the question, do you ever skip stretching?
Ah, the big one. Based on Emily's advice, never. I always stretch before and after workouts. That's a non-negotiable for me now after this deep dive.
Good takeaway. And finally, if they ask, how many rest days do you take?
You could say, I usually rest on weekends, but sometimes I take a lazy Monday too. I love that honesty in the example. It feels real.
Right. Acknowledges life happens.
Okay, well, that wraps up our deep dive into fitness routines and, just as importantly, the powerful language we use to describe them.
Yeah.
Hopefully you've absorbed some practical tips on consistency, the variety of workouts, those smart motivation strategies,
And the vocabulary.
and that vital vocabulary, those action verbs, and especially those frequency adverbs.
And remember, knowledge is really most valuable when you understand it and can apply it.
True.
So the ability to actually articulate your routine, set clear goals for yourself, and truly understand the nuances of different exercises that empowers you, both physically and communicatively on your health journey.
Well said. So here's something to think about as we finish up. Beyond just the physical benefits, how does the act of consciously planning and then confidently discussing your fitness routine actually strengthen your self-discipline and maybe your overall well-being?
Interesting angle.
And maybe what small, consistent change could you implement this week? Something you could then clearly describe using some of the language we've discussed today.